So you checked out our heavy metal gilding paints here at Wise Owl, and you thought, yeah, it's cool. I could do hardware, I could do accenting stuff, but can I paint a whole piece with it? And today I'm here to tell you the answer is yes. I actually recreated one of my old finishes that folks really seem to like. It's my hammered aged metallic finish, and I used all Wise Owl paint products in this video. And the main reason I did that was because I was able to skip some steps and make the process just a little bit easier, because as you'll see, this video is a little bit long, but it goes through a lot of steps to get that final beautiful hammered aged finish. But I was able to skip some using our heavy metal gilding paints and our 1-hour enamel. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned on Wise Owl Paint Party. So Wise Owl has come out with their very own gilding paints, and they're going to come in different kind of metallic colors. For this one, it's going to be Cleopatra, but you can probably use this video for, all of them if you're using the underlying paint the same color, and I'll walk through all of that as well as we go through. So ultimately, this is the color it's going to end up looking like. This does also have some black glaze on it, so you can kind of see the aged look to it. But we're going to give it that hammered and aged look to this table right here. So this is a client piece that once these gilding paints came out, she's like, oh, I really like that color. I'd like to have your hammered aged finish done to this table. So I've already done all the prep work. So the prep has been done. In the links below, I'll have links connecting you to all my prep work. So that included cleaning and priming. As you can see, I used Wise Owl's gray primer, and that's a great base for anything you're doing. This is a metal table, so I definitely needed to use primer on this. And, oh, by the way, the first step I'm gonna take is painting with their 1-hour enamel. So definitely wanna prime anytime you're gonna use their 1-hour enamel, but using their 1-hour enamel helped skip a step that I used to do previous, but we'll get to that. So to start, I wanted to walk through just what you're gonna need. So primer, I use a Klingon F50 to apply my primer. Their jet black 1-hour enamel, I use a Klingon S50 to apply that. And then of course their amazing, beautiful new gilding paints. This is Cleopatra, which is what we're going to be using in this video. And then I'm going to use the Klingon 045 just because it's circular. It allows me to get down into the little container a little bit easier and then paint it on. And then we're going to use a subtractive stippling technique. And if you're new to that, I'll walk through when I get to that step. But what you'll need is something like this. And the reason why I like this rather than a brush is because it gives a very uneven look to the subtractive stipple, which gives a better, more authentic look to the hammered metal look. So I always use something like this. You can complement that with your brush, but try using one of these. I think it really gives a better look to it. And you're going to need their matte varnish. And again, back to my F50, which is what I use for varnish application when I brush it on. And then last but not least, the glaze. I'm using their black glaze, and that's going to give me that aged look to the overall finish. So that's what you're going to need. For our first step, we're going to go straight to the painting on of their jet black 1-hour enamel. All right, so our first step is painting on our base coat. Now, when you're doing this particular finish, which is ultimately a hammered metallic finish, you gotta think through what's underneath your metallic color. And the reason for that is when you're doing the subtractive stippling, which we'll get to, you're ultimately going to be punching through that metallic coat and allowing some of the base coat to show through. So for this particular finish, like I did with my copper one from the past, or now the Cleopatra for this one, the black really looks amazing when you have it peeking through all those little stippled bumps you have through your metallic paint. So that's why you're doing a specific color for this finish as your base, because you really got to think that through. If you're, taking that stip and stippling, and it's a subtractive stipple, so you're going to paint it on and then pull the paint off, you're going to show what's below. So that's why you want to pick the right color. So if you're not sure what you want to do, please do a sample boarding. But for me, I knew already from the past doing this finish, I wanted to do black underneath Cleopatra. And that's kind of what my client was looking for. So what I decided on is decided to test out a theory. Now, in the past, I did chalk style paint and then a poly and then did my metallic. Well, I'm able to skip a step, which is that poly or varnish now for me, utilizing Wise Owl's 1 hour enamel, because it already has the built-in top coat. Now you're asking yourself, why do I need a top coat between my base coat and the metallic? Well, the biggest reason for that is when you're doing a subtractive stipple, you're gonna paint it on and then subtractive stipple. And if the paint doesn't move a little bit, you're not gonna get that same effect to the stipple, okay? So you need something that's a little bit, I don't wanna say slick, but is less absorbent, I guess is a better way, because a lot of chalk style paints are very absorbent, where you have more open time to move it around as you're creating that stippled effect or hammered, metal effect. So you want to have that in between. So you're normally a chalk style paint, then a varnish, then your metallic when you're doing that part. Well, I did a test and really loved the results where I skipped a step by using their 1 hour enamel. I know I'm going to use a black, right? So I was like, well, why not just try this? It already has the built-in top coat that'll allow me to skip a step. That's what I'm going to do. So with this, you just paint it on. And if you're new to Wise Owl, this is their 1 hour enamel. It's basically, you paint it on and you're done. It dries super hard. It's something a lot of people use for kitchen cabinets and different kind of things like that. But I found applications for furniture, and there's quite a few of them. And this just happens to be one of them. So I'm going to paint this on. It's a jet black, and you'll see it's really, really black. So if you painted furniture and you're trying to find a really deep black, Wise Owl has them, whether it's a chalk synthesis or their 1 hour enamel, they're very, very black. So I'm going to get some on here and walk through painting this on, because it is a little bit different. So if you're new to their 1 hour enamel, I want to talk this through a little bit. So it dries fast. So you're going to want to get it on, and it's a little thinner. Let me show you. See, it's a little thinner and dries faster. So for this video, I'm only going to do the top of this piece, but I'll show the whole piece when I'm done. And we're going to just brush it on. Now, knowing we're going to go over top of this with layers of other stuff, you don't need to be really too terribly specific about the brush strokes and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, what we're just trying to do is get a good base layer of black. So whatever does peek through our metallic is going to be black. So we're just going to get this on. Now, this dries incredibly fast. Faster than a chalk style paint, and you're going to want to get it on just like I do a lot of them. Get it all on and then brush it out how you want, and then walk away and not mess with it. It's just like pretty much all of Wise Owl's paints and varnishes and all that stuff. It self-levels really well. So you're going to want to get it on and then just feather it out. And because it is a 1 hour enamel, in an hour from now, I'm going to be able to come back and do my second coat, which obviously you're going to need to do because a little bit of the gray is peeking through, which I do not want. I want only black to show through my metallic when I'm done with this. So I'm going to get this on. I'm just going to nice and gently feather it out. And then I'm going to walk away. And this stuff really self-levels like crazy. So you're going to think, oh man, look at all the brush strokes in it. And you're going to come back and it's going to be flat and glassy, beautifulness. This dries with more of an eggshell finish because it does have that built-in top coat. So it's kind of a unique finish to it as well. And then don't shake your can because this stuff dries so fast, you'll leave bubbles in it and your bubbles will dry as bubbles in your paint when it dries, which if you're using this and this only, you definitely don't want. So you see how glassy beautiful that is? All I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna walk away. I'm gonna sneak around this side, paint this up real quick, and then I'm gonna leave it alone. And then I will come back for coat number 2, just so I can show you guys what coat number 2 looks like going on and how it cleared up and how it dried. And I'll probably try to do this within an hour or 2 so I can show you what it looks like within an hour. But this is gonna be our base coat for this particular hammered metallic finish. Wow. And when we do the reverse or subtractive stippling, this is what's gonna peek through this nice, beautiful, deep jet black color. And that's it for now. All right, so we're on to our next step, which is the second coat of our jet black Wise Owl 1 hour enamel. And as you can see, I mean, look at how amazing this is. Like, incredible, right? Because you saw me put it on. I put it on, I walked away and I let gravity do its work, and boy, did it ever. It flattened beautifully. And you're gonna see the spots because I did one coat. I did one even just nice coat, and there were spots where it didn't cover completely just because I put it on and I walked away. I didn't want to keep messing with it to get it on there, because if you do, then you might leave brush strokes because this stuff dries fast. But I didn't do that. I decided, nope, I'm not gonna mess with it. I'm gonna come back and finish these spots that I missed or didn't get enough of on my second coat. And that's exactly what you wanna do, because you do not want to keep going over it and over it and over, because it will dry while you're doing that and you will leave brush strokes. And then you'll be stuck with having to sand in between coats. And as you can see, I'm not gonna have to do anything. I mean, look at how beautiful that is. It's beautifully just flat and perfect and wonderful. I mean, really, honestly, if you're looking for a one color finish with a paint where you don't have to do anything else, that 1 hour enamel is the way to go. But that's not what we're doing with this finish. So I gotta get to my next step. So I'm gonna prep my Klingon S50 here real quick. Just wanna get a little bit of moisture to my brush, a little spray, a little squeeze, and then I got my 1 hour enamel down here. And we're gonna do our second coat. And again, we're gonna get it on quick. And we're gonna like feather it out and we're gonna walk away. And this time I'm hoping I'm gonna be able to get the entire coat coverage so I don't have to come back a third time. But I think just because I was doing the video, I didn't pay attention as well to that side. And you can see where that side got neglected a little bit because this side looks fine over here. So again, we're gonna get it on really quick. And if I didn't mention the other video, do not shake this stuff. Make sure you stir it because you don't want any bubbles to pop up. And the bubbles then transfer onto what you're painting and then in turn dry, and then you have bubbles drying in there. So you wanna make sure you stir it and not shake it. So again, I'm hurrying because this stuff dries really fast. So I'm gonna get it on, make sure I get these spots I missed before. So I'm gonna get it on there and then I'm gonna feather it out. It's okay, now I got it on. I'm just gonna feather it out, just like this. And you wanna get, like I said in the first video, you wanna get a good generous amount. Feather it out really good. And then walk away. Do not overwork this stuff. Okay, I'm gonna walk around. Now I'm gonna get that complete coverage. That's it. That's all I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna touch it again. And also, because this isn't my main coat, it's gonna be underneath the gold. If I did miss a spot here or there, I'm not as worried about it. But I just wanted to show you a little bit into the 1 hour enamel because I was doing it just to how you paint it on, you walk away and you let it settle, and it will settle beautifully. So but that's going to be it. And we're going to get to the next step after that, which is actually going to be the fun part, is where we're going to paint on the Cleopatra, and then we're going to use a reverse stippling or subtractive stippling technique to give us that hammered, metal look that I do with my finishes. And that's what's great about using the 1 hour enamel, as I do not have to top coat this to get to that step. And I'll explain more when we get there, but that's it for now. All right, so we're on to our next step, which is the fun step, which is actually adding in our metallic, which for this finish, we're using heavy metals, which is Wise Owl's new Gilding paint line. And this is Cleopatra. This is what my client wanted. And I actually have a little example owl, and you can see this has been done with a little bit of black glaze, which gives it the aged look, which is also what we're going to be doing here. So, but before I get started, and I already kind of talked about what we're going to use at the beginning, but I wanted to talk through why we do a certain step. And basically, in my older videos, I would paint with the chalk style paint, top coat it with a poly and or varnish, and then do the actual subtractive stippling of the metallic paint to give the hammered metallic look. So, and there's a reason for that. So within this video, I've been able to skip that step because I'm using Wise Owl's 1 hour enamel, which has this really amazing, you can see the second coat turned out just as perfect as the first. Amazing eggshell top coated finish without having to add a secondary top coat. And there's a reason for that. So when you're doing a subtractive stipple, so basically you're going to paint on the paint, and I'll walk through this here in a second. You're going to paint on the paint, and then you're going to push through the paint to give that stippled look. And then pushing through the paint will actually push the paint down, pull some off, hence the subtractive part. And when you go down to push, it's going to push and move the paint. So that's why you're going to want to have the color you want to show below the right color. So that's why we use black. So it's going to push the paint, move the paint a little bit, give it that stippled, hammered kind of look. And then you're going to go on to your next step. Well, if you did this directly over a chalk style paint, so you went paint to paint, that pushing of the paint, when you push down and then come back up, might not move as freely because that chalk style paint just absorbs the other paints and other things that you put on top of it, because it's a very porous paint. So you want to have something that has either a built-in top coat like this, or top coat the paint that you're using if you're using a chalk style paint. So if I was using Wise Owl's black in the chalk synthesis paint, then I would have done a coat of varnish and then done this step that we're about to do. But because they have this amazing, 1 hour enamel, I was able to skip that step. And I've already tested it out. It works amazingly well, does exactly what I was hoping. So again, you're gonna push down and pull up, and this top coated feel is gonna allow for that paint to push and move and do all the fun things we want it to do to get that hammered metallic look. So I just wanna go over that real quick, in case you're wondering why the heck I use this paint, or why the heck, I need a top coat. That would be why. Because if you just went with this straight over the chalk synthesis paint line, you might not be able to get the same effect with the subtractive stipple, because it's going to want to just absorb right into the paint too quickly and not allow you to do all the fun, texturized techniques with it. So that's it. We're going to go right into the next. I'm only going to do the top with you guys, just like I have been. So we're going to paint on the top with my 040. I went down one, I think, from what I wrote in the actual beginning, just because I think I want to have something a little smaller to get in and around all the legs and stuff below here. And the narrower you get with this, a little bit easier it is to get in and around without having a big bulkier oval shaped brush. So I'm going to use this one. And of course it gets down into the little container really well too. So we're going to dip, we're going to paint on, and then we're going to do our subtractive stipple with our little brush thingy bobber here. Okay, here we go. So you see nice, beautiful surface, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise this up, tilt it down just a hair, because you don't need to see all of me and all the background. You really want to see what I'm doing with this step. So I'm going to zoom in and kind of give you a really great perspective to see, you know, the painting on and subtractive stippling parts of this step. And again, we're just going to do the top so you can see exactly how this gets done for, you know, a large flat area. And it'll be the same all throughout. It gets a little bit trickier when you have legs and stuff like that, but the same technique will go into place. So give me 1 second, adjust my camera, and then we'll be right back. All right, so here we go. Look at how beautiful that 1 hour enamel turned out. It's awesome, right? Okay, so we got our Cleopatra. I stirred it up really good, and that's gonna be your very first step. And then I'm gonna prime I got the 040 Klingon. I'm gonna prime it real quick. Just a little bit wet. Squeeze a little bit of water into it. All right, now we're gonna bring this right over here. Just brush this off first. Make sure I don't waste any of it here. All right, here we go. All right, so we're just gonna dip. And for this, we're gonna go a little bit heavier. And we're just gonna brush it on. Just get it on there, okay? Good thick consistency, because you got to think about it. We're going to make some texture out of this. So, but this is probably the biggest size area I would go before I would worry about it drying. The open time is pretty good for this metallics, but you want to do this reverse stippling or subtractive stippling step in parts and areas. Don't like try to do a whole piece like this all at once. You section it off. You're probably like, what in the heck is going on right now? It'll come together, I promise. I just got to get this stuff on. And you're only going to do 1 coat of this. So you really want to make sure whatever area you're doing, you got enough to do everything, because you don't want to come back and do a second coat, because then you're covering up your stippling that you did. I'll go over that here in a second, what I mean by that. But basically, when you're stippling this, especially doing a subtractive, you're pulling paint off and leaving spots to show just exactly how you want it to show. But if you go back over it a second time, it's like you're doing a second layer of paint, which means you're going to cover up the pretty subtractive bumps and, you know, hammered metallic look. You're going to cover all that up. So you're going to cover up the black that's going to peek through, is the long and short to that. So quickly, you get your paint on. Okay, and this is, you know, you can do it like this if you want to, but that does a very specific pattern. And I'm trying to get away from that when I'm doing a hammered metal look. So I use that brush thing, and I'm going to get to here in a second. And I use that because, you know, a hammered metal is not symmetrical. Like when it gets hammered, it's very uneven, imperfectly perfect kind of thing. It's not the exact same thing all the time. So I thought, why not get a brush that would give me that same effect, that's going to allow for the finish to be not exactly the same everywhere, which is ended up working out really well when I did this before. So it's kind of the method I've stuck with the whole time. So when I'm going in and out of the camera, but I need to ensure I get all this on all in one step. Okay, so that looks good. So I'm gonna set my brush off to the side here. I'm gonna get my handy dandy scrubber brushy thing. So what we're gonna do is push down and up, down and up, down and up. We're just gonna do this throughout. And you'll probably see in the camera, it'll start looking like little rippled bumps throughout. Like if somebody took and was just hammering the metal. And then as I'm pushing down and pulling up, it's pulling paint off, and it's also moving the paint in little like scratches and different kind of, just like a hammered, aged metal is gonna look, right? And then what happens with a metallic paint is as it's moved around like that, from the different directions you look at it, it's gonna have a different kind of reflective presence to the paint itself, which is really cool, which really gives it that super awesome metallic look. And this is where the art comes in. You know, it's just, there's no really specific way to tell you how to do it. Like, oh, you have to push down straight and you have to come back up. You know, you can push and you can drag to have scratch marks. You just have to decide what you want it to look like. And as I tell everybody, if you have a technique that you want to try, please, please, please do a sample board. Even I made this finish years ago. And even I, knowing I was using some different paints to create it this time, I did sample boarding to test my theory out with a 1 hour enamel to make sure it worked the same, that it gave the same result that my client wanted, and all that kind of stuff. So anytime you're doing something that's new and different, you definitely want to sample board it out and make sure it gives you exactly what you're looking for. Now you can see the open time for this metallic is pretty good. If you open time, meaning the time it's staying wet for me to play with it, which is amazing, because for this kind of technique, you know, you want it to stay open long enough so you can go back and you can look and walk around it and make sure you got all the spots you want to get. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect, folks. You know, just, this is, you know, it's a hammered, aged metal look. Right now we're doing the hammered part. And it doesn't have to be exact. It just has to look cool. And I'm telling you, this already really looking cool. So this just gives you, like I said, a really uneven finish. And I didn't want it to look all symmetrical and stuff. I didn't want to, and oh, by the way, it covers a bigger area too. But I was just to use my brush. Now, I see a spot right here where I didn't get enough paint. We're just gonna dab a little on there like that, which ends up covering it all back up. So I gotta go back over it. But that's what you can do if you missed a spot here or there. And then I'm gonna need to walk around, so you're just gonna see my brush for the most part. But I wanna make sure I'm getting the whole area really good. So this is a subtractive stipple. So you paint the paint on with one brush and use the stippling technique, which is this, to either pull it off and or move it around, which allows the paint from below or the surface from below to peek through. And that's what you're gonna get. And it's just a really cool effect, especially with a metallic paint, because metallic paint, if you paint it on all one direction, it shows all the same generalized shimmer. So a really beautiful, solid shimmer. But when you have it where you're showing it from all different kind of directions like this, it's just a different effect, a different look that you can get from it. So I'm hoping this is coming across really well in the camera. Already looks really cool. So one thing I did find, and it's not necessarily a negative unless you're doing this technique, is that as Weisall's paints do, they are very self-leveling. I don't know how the heck she designs these things to do it so well, but they do. And this paint is no different. So when you're trying to leave texture in a paint, you really don't want it to self-level as well as this does. So you kind of want to play around with it like I just did. I added a little bit more paint right there because it was starting to level out a little bit too much because I didn't have enough paint in that particular spot. So if you really wanted to have not only the look, but the feel of bumps to it or texture to it, you're gonna need to keep playing with it as it's drying. So almost like continuing this stipple through the drying process. So as you can see, I'm still playing with it. Like I could walk away, but a lot of it's gonna flatten right out on me because their stuff is just amazing for that, really self-levels. I mean, you see the 1 hour enamel, how well that self-leveled. Amazing. And this is just the same. So to try to keep as much of that texturing as possible, you just keep playing with it as it's drying. Just go over the thicker spots. You know, if you're short in an area and you want to add, just add a little bit more paint. But you want to make this one step, because once you go back over it, it's going to be dry, and then you're going to be filling in all the pretty little holes that you have where the black is showing through, and that is something you don't want to do to have the effect we're going for here. So again, this is just artistic representation of what you would like it to look like. You can keep going, you can leave it. There's a little bit of the brush strokes from when I brushed it on. There's a little bit of the black from where I pushed down and pulled it off. There's a little bit of just bumps in the thicker spots where the paint was. There's a whole bunch of fun stuff happening here. It's really gonna make this a beautiful finish once it's all done. And you can just stop here. Like if you wanted just a hammered metal look, this is a cool way to do it. But as the name says, it's hammered and aged. So we're gonna add some black glaze to this. All right, that's looking pretty good. So what I'm gonna do, I think, is I'm gonna pull the camera off. I'm gonna give you a couple other little angles of what I did here. So if you give me 1 second, I'm gonna take this down and readjust and show you what it looks like from other angles. All right, so here we are. So I just pulled it down, it's still wet, but I wanted to show you, look at how cool that is. So this is what it's gonna look like from all that. So painted on, and you can see it's got some bumps, which is really cool. It's got some scratchy scratch marks where the black is coming through. So really a really cool, just hammered metallic look. And here we go. This is what I wanted to do. Let's come to this side so you can see the light reflecting out. Look at how cool that is. Yes. It makes me happy when it turns out good, especially when this is going to be for a client. It always tickles me when things turn out exactly how I want them to for a client. Now this will settle a little bit because again, their paint is very self-leveling, so it will settle a little bit, so it won't be like super, super bumpy. And then like you guys saw, I was doing it a lot. Like you could do it even less if you wanted more of a flat look to it, but you just wanted the variations in the metallic. So, but anyways, that's that. Really cool stuff. This is such a fun technique to use. And now that we have all these amazing new metallics from Wise Owl, I'm excited to try doing some other ideas with this type, maybe some layering of, but that'll be it for now. I'm going to do all the legs too. So the whole thing will be one hammered aged Cleopatra. All right, so here we are onto our almost last step, the aging process. And as you can see, it turned out really beautiful. It's got this really uneven hammered metal pattern with scratches through and bumps in different directionality of the, metallicness, or whatever the word is I'm thinking of, but turned out really beautiful. Now we're gonna age it a little bit. And how we're gonna do that is we're gonna use some Wise Owl black glaze. So, and if you've never used their black glaze, it looks like this. It's kind of a charcoal color in the can. And what it does is it dries black. So it kind of has like the mechanism in which it carries the pigments, dissipates, and then what's left is the black. So I'm gonna stir really good. And for this, I got Klingon R18. And here, let me just prep my brush first real quick. So we're just gonna paint this right on, and then we're gonna wipe it off. I have some blue shop towels. I have one that's already wet, which I sprayed down a little bit, and then I have some that are dry. If you use a wet surface to wipe back the glaze, it'll stay wet longer, which gives you a longer time to play and move it around a little bit. So I would recommend something like baby wipes. I just happen to not have any in the house right now, and I wanted to continue on with this step. So rather than using baby wipes, I'm gonna use a dampened, just like this, blue shop towel to wipe back. So we're just gonna go right into it here. I'm gonna get a good, healthy, generous amount, and we're just gonna paint this stuff on. And if it's your first time with glaze, it dries really fast, really fast. So you just want to get it on, do what you have to do, and get on to the next part, which is going to be wiping it off. You don't want to play around with it too long. If you noticed, there was no top coating step. Now, if you follow me at all and have done any of my videos, you know there's paint, then top coat, then glaze. But another step we were able to skip because we're using Wise Owl's Gilding paint, which already has a built-in top coat, is we were able to skip that step because it already has the top coat built in. So let's see how this wipes off. We're going to kind of go in a circular pattern, wiping it off as well, and leave some cool streaky black marks to this as best I can. But yeah, so you didn't have to top coat it because it already has a built-in top coat. Well, this is going to be a little bit tricky because it's circular. It's not like you're going in any kind of linear fashion to paint this on and wipe it off. So a little bit trickier than usual. But you can see it's drying fast, so we got to get right to it. Just continue this process until we get it exactly where we kind of want it to be. And if you've never used glaze before, the glaze will reactivate the glaze. So if you have some on there that you're like, oh, I don't like that spot, you can use some glaze to reactivate it and then go back over it. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is just give it a really cool aged feel to the metal look. So now that I did a lot all at once, you can see where it's settling down into all those bumps that we've created, all the texture that we've created. It's looking really cool. You're trying to do the circular pattern. And this is not easy, folks. I'm going to tell you right now. You have to do a tabletop that's circular. This isn't my first time having to do one like this. It's not easy. But you can see pulling it off is leaving the ridges with the gold, and then leaving the black down in the inside parts. So that's kind of what we're looking for. So the more I do this, the better and better it's looking here. But this is tricky. So again, we're just painting it on and wiping it off. I did one big, large area first to get it on. And now we're starting to narrow down more specific spots that I want it to get a little bit more, either the age look down in, like there's a spot right there, it needs to get a little bit something in there. And then wipe it back and see what it does. There we go, just like that. And this is very much an artistic thing too. It's like gonna be your preference of how you want it to look when it's all done. You might want it just down in the parts, no blotches of it. You might want more blotches and less streaks. Could be, there's so many different ways you can apply this. So it just depends on what you're going for. Again, I'm kind of going for the aged look to it. So all right, looking good. Looking good. We're gonna get another one. And like I said, you just kind of play until you get it how you're wanting it to look. I probably would recommend using gloves for this because the stuff is dries and gets all over yourself. But again, I don't have any on me, so I decided to go without gloves today. That's really cool. So it's really bringing out all the little, you can see all the bumps that I created, all the different scratches and ridges and all different kind of stuff. Circular pattern is not easy though. That's why this is taking me a little bit, rather than just kind of going in from a corner or something like that. You're trying to give the impression of almost like a shield, a circular shield of some sort. That's why I said I did one big, large spot and then started painting on a little bit of this and a little bit of that here and there. Get this thing a little bit more wet. And then you just kind of artistically go after it, figure out what is what you're trying to do. See, now I'm going to pull some back and give it a little bit here and a little bit not. So that's why I said it's really very much an artistic step, because there's no real way to tell you exactly how to do this. Like, well, you must do it this way. That's just not the case with glazing. It's just as you decide what looks the best for you. Wow, that's looking really cool. I'm loving this look. I'm telling you, it's not easy though. Oh my goodness. This circular pattern is kind of a pain. But anyways, I digress. I'm kind of going a little bit long with this section, but I really wanted just to show you, even if I'm not like talking through the whole time, exactly what I'm doing to kind of give you an idea of how I got to that result. Wow, that's looking cool. So this is what I do. You just kind of play till you get it exactly how you want. Like, there's going to be darker spots and lighter spots. So it really looks like an aged metal. In this case, Cleopatra. Let's see. All right, let me pull this camera back a little bit so you can see the whole thing. There you go. And it'll look, you'll have a better idea what the final result is in the final pictures. And that'll kind of give you, a determination of what you like best or not. Okay, so let me do this one last little thing. Okay, so I'm gonna spray my thing again, get it a little bit damp. And then I'm gonna just rub over the ridges and see how it pulls a little off. That's what you can do. If you wanna just like bring out a little bit of what's underneath, a little bit more. So you kind of have some dark, some not. So you can see where it sat down into my hammered spots or textured spots. Man, that's really cool. Man, I can't wait to show you guys this in pictures, because I can guarantee the video is not really capturing this the way I see it in front of me right now. Very, very cool. So anyways, as I said at the beginning, this using their gilding paint allows you to skip the top coating step, because you can go right directly over top of it with the glaze and still have enough time to move it around before it dries on you. So that's going to be it for now. Next is going to be varnish. I'm not going to do the glazing on the legs for you guys. I just want to do the top, just to kind of give you an idea of how I'm doing it. But we'll do varnish, top coat it real good, because this is obviously something that's going to take some wear and tear as a end table. We want to make sure it's ready to go. So that's it for now. All right, so we're on to our very last step of my hammered, aged Cleopatra this time, metallic finish. And as you can see, it turned out really just absolutely amazing. It has that metallic sheen, it has the aged look, it has the stipple, just aged hammered metal look. I mean, it basically looks like the gong from the Gong Show. If you're older like me, you remember that show, it's kind of what it looks like. It's like you want to take a thing and go boom. But it turned out really, really good. I'm very, very happy with how the glaze turned out. It was very perfectly imperfect, as I like to call it sometimes, because I mean, you don't want it to be exactly the same all over. You want it to really, if you're making something look aged, it's not gonna have this exactly perfect everywhere. It's gonna have like parts that are peeking out more and parts that are darker and streaks and all this kind of stuff. That's what an aged metal would look like. So it just, I mean, it really just, that step turned out amazing. Very, very happy with how it turned out. So now we just have to top coat this bad boy. And what we're gonna use is Wise Owl's matte varnish. And it's a fairly simple process, especially when you have a textured, you know, look like this. You really don't have to be too particular about how it gets brushed on. And matter of fact, you might not even want to. You might want to do some cross hatching of it to add to the textured look that it has. You know, it's not like one color where you really have to be very particular about how it gets laid on. So what I have is my Klingon F50. This is pretty much what I use anytime I do varnishing on surfaces that are not large. I'll use the B12, which is the big brush, anytime I do large flat surfaces. So for their varnish, just ensure you stir it, don't shake it. Just causes bubbles. So it's one of those things like their 1 hour enamel, you want to make sure you stir it and don't shake it. So I'm just gonna get a good little amount on here, and I'm just gonna paint this on. And again, it's no real, you know, hardcore thing that you need to, you know, way you need to paint this on, because it already has a textured look. So if you end up adding a little bit of texture from brush strokes or whatever, painting this on, it's no stress. But this stuff, if you're new to Wise Owl, does dry very fast. Just like the 1 hour enamel, they're very similar in that they're gonna dry fast. So you're gonna wanna paint it on and leave it alone unless you're trying to add brush strokes to your top coat. So I'm not gonna overwork this too much. I'm basically just gonna get a coat on and walk away from it. Try to get it in whatever directionality that I want to get it in. So if I want it to get straight across, and then go straight across with it. Sneak over here on this side real quick. And this is all there's gonna be to it. I'm just gonna paint it on. I'm gonna do a little bit of cross hatching just to get a little bit of texture to the top coat. You don't have to do this. You can do this if you want to. I like to when I do textured patterns. Just kind of adds to it in the end. And that's gonna be it. I'm gonna walk away, I'm gonna let this dry. Top, I'm probably gonna do 3 to 5, just because that's how I roll when I'm talking about an area where I know it's gonna get a lot of use. It's 3 to 5 coats, depending on how they went. The bottom probably will only get 2. The areas that I don't touch, and I say 2 just because, you know, if you do 1, you might miss a spot. So I always go back over with a second coat, and you might not even need that second coat. It's just to ensure everywhere gets covered. And because we glazed over the gilding wax, you need to top coat it. So if you didn't glaze over the gilding metallic paint, you would not have to top coat it because it doesn't need a top coat. But because we glazed it, we needed to top coat it. So, but that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun to kind of reinvent the wheel, I guess, so to speak. I had created this finish years ago when I first started painting with other products, and now I have some new ones to play with, and I wanted to recreate this finish for you guys. And with that, I was able to skip some steps, which was kind of cool because, you know, this whole process to create this finish before was very labor intensive. There's quite a bit more to it, at least 3 or 4 more steps that we're able to skip now that we have Wise Owl's products that allow for some of that stuff to get skipped and still come up with such a beautiful finish. And there you have it. Heavy metal gilding paints are not just for hardware. They're not just for accenting. You can use them on entire pieces. And hopefully in this tutorial, you kind of took something away and maybe you utilize it in your own special way, on your own special piece, whether it's gold dust or bronze or whatever metallic gilding paint you decide to use. If you do decide to try, please find your local retailer to find all the products you need. I'll have a link in the description below to help you find your retailer near you. And as always, happy painting.